Dear viewers, everyone wants to be very successful in their investment exercise. In fact, investment exercise is not that difficult. If it is not that difficult, why a lot of people fail in their investments? The answer lies in the emotions that the investors will go through at the time of doing the investments. When a person is taken over by the emotions, what happens is the investor is likely to be left with a lot of biases in his mind. Unless he learns to conquer these biases, the success from investment exercise remains a distant dream. In this episode, I am going to talk to you about one important bias the investor has to conquer, and that is the recency bias. This is NRI Money Clinic for you, and I am Dr. Chandrakant Bhatt, investment consultant and a financial planner.
NRI Money Clinic. No hype, just the right advice.
Dear viewers, recency bias is something that the investors must conquer. If you do not conquer the recency bias, I am very sure it is impossible to succeed in the investment exercise. I remember a case around 2012-2013. I met one gentleman, and during the course of my fact find session with him to do financial planning for him, what I realized was a shocking thing that is happening in his life. This gentleman is a learned person, but every month he was buying huge amounts of gold. In fact, he was buying gold to an extent that 50% of his salary was being used to buy gold every month. I was shell shocked. I had never seen a case similar to that in my life. I asked the gentleman, why are you buying so much of a gold? The reason what he told was, gold is moving up. If we are not buying gold, then what else is there for us to invest? In fact, when we looked back, we saw that between 2010 and 2012-13 period, gold moved all the way from $1,000 per ounce to about $1,800. So the investor got into a frame of mind that you buy gold and every month it keeps increasing and increasing and increasing, and a disproportionate amount of money went into buying into the gold. What happened subsequently? The gold within next couple of years dropped from $1,800 to a level of $1,100 to $1,200. The investor made a mistake thinking that the gold prices will continue to move up all the time without a break, and he committed a disproportionate amount of money into buying the gold. This is a classic example of how recency bias can go against your interest. Is this the only example? No, there are examples all the time in every asset class. Whether it is a fixed income, whether it is the gilt funds, whether it is in equity, whether it is in a particular stock, particular sector, you name it, investors will go through the recency bias. What is recency bias? Recency bias is believing something which has happened in the recent past, which is fresh in your memory, will continue to exhibit the same character going forward from here without a break. And your mind tends to think that the same thing will happen years and years into the future. The recency bias creates an illusion in your mind that whatever you saw in the recent past will continue to exhibit the same way into the future. In reality, the situation is completely different. The world is ruled by cyclicity. What goes up comes down, what comes down will also move up. So there is something which is called the cyclicity. That's the rule of the nature. That cannot be escaped. But because of the recent successes, our mind fails to accept this particular fact and we tend to do the mistakes. Who will get affected with this recency bias? In fact, every person is likely to get affected from recency bias. Recency bias has to be conquered with a conscious effort. In fact, the traders in the stock market or traders anywhere else are prone more for recency bias. Likewise, the younger person is more prone for recency bias than a mature older person. A seasoned financial planner is required to conquer the recency bias. Why does the younger generation suffers from recency bias? It is because of lack of experience. They could be venturing into the marketplace for the first time. They have not seen markets over many number of years. They tend to believe that what they are seeing will continue to happen. In the last 2 years, I have seen several youngsters coming and showing me that they are suffering from recency bias. What did we see in the last 2 years? Market fell down to a level of about 27,000 on the Sensex. That's somewhere in March, April of 2020. Then it rallied all the way up to 62,000. People thought it could be easy to double the money from here. See, if Sensex has moved from 28 to 62,000, that's a reality. But 62,000 becoming 1 lakh is not going to be a reality. But when I tell these people the markets will not move like that, they tend to disbelieve what I tell them, because they think they have seen this, it happens, because of which, so what I say will not get into their heads and they burn their fingers. How does the recency bias can affect your investment? It affects your investments in multiple ways. One of the ways it can badly affect your investment is the chance of losing money becomes absolutely real. Okay, if you think that the same trend will continue into the future, you will start putting more money into it. You may tend to bet on it. You may take a leveraged position and invest into this. But as per the rule of cyclicity, at some point of time, either the markets will plateau out or the markets will go through a downward turn and you stand to lose a huge amount of money. This is the outcome of recency bias. Unless you are very conscious that you could be a victim of recency bias, the chances of losing money because of this is absolutely real. Likewise, in an investment exercise, you have to exercise what is known as an exposure control. You just because something is doing very well, you can't put all your money into that particular asset class or stock or a particular sector. You have to make sure that you put an exposure control. The reason why exposure control has to be put is because everything will not go the same way all the time. Every asset class, every sector will not perform the same way. So it is very essential that you should put exposure controls into each and everything that you are buying into. But if you are affected by recency bias, then you create favorites in your mind. You think out of all the things that is there, this could be the best one, and you may have a disproportionate exposure into that particular asset class or something what you are buying, and that can result in a loss for you. Recency bias can also take out many of the opportunities that might come along. Say for example, if the markets are falling and you had entered market when the Sensex was at 62,000 and you see weeks after week, months after months, the market keeps coming down and you get into a disbelief or the recency bias that the markets are here to fall. Markets are falling, that's right. Market might continue to fall, that's also possible, but markets cannot continuously fall. At some point of time, they have to stabilize, and from there onwards, one more northward journey will also start. If you are taken over by the recency bias of the market is falling and you stay on the sidelines or you completely sell out, what might happen is you will lose the opportunity. When the markets are falling, what exactly is happening is the risk in the market keeps coming down. You will not realize because of this recency bias. The market becomes attractive day after day when the markets are falling down. So if you are conquered by the recency bias, you will not recognize this as an opportunity and you let go this opportunity from your hands. While the chance of losing money from recency bias is real, the chance of losing opportunity is also real because of the recency bias. That is why it becomes absolutely essential for every investor to conquer the recency bias. While we understood what is recency bias, now let us look at what we can do to conquer this recency bias. The first step to conquer the recency bias is a belief in your mind that you can get affected by recency bias. At every stage of your decision making, the first tick box that you have to be ticking is, am I affected by recency bias? Is there an element which is creeping in here because of recency bias, which is affecting my investment decision. If you become very conscious to ask you the question, am I going to be a victim of recency bias, the chances are that you will not get affected is very real. Likewise, there are other steps that I can tell you here how you can conquer the recency bias. Number one, if you see something which is happening, which is disbelieving, you will not believe that, oh, it happened to such an extent, oh, it gave so much of a return. See it with a skepticism. Okay, why did it happen? Is it a routine affair? Is it a one-off event? It is by chance that it has happened? Ask these questions. See it with a skepticism. Yes, it has happened. You have seen it is happening, but it will not happen all the time. When you see it with a skepticism, then you can control the recency bias and the problems that come along with that. Likewise, when you see something which is happening in the recent past, it gave a very high rate of return or it fell through from a roof to the bottom, both can affect your judgment. All that you have to do is find out what happened in the long term. Let's say if you are looking at what happened in the last 6 months or last 1 year or last 2 years, the way to come out of that is expand your time horizon to maybe 5 years, maybe 10 years. Let's say the market expanded by 50% or 100% in 1 year. What was 100 today became 200 in 1 year's time. Now, if you try to extrapolate it because of the recency bias, then it gives you an impression in your mind, next year the market will move from 200 to 400. That will not happen. And you do your calculation. If this were to be the thing which is happening, how much it could have happened over 10 years of time. Go back 10 years and check where the market was. If your recency bias were to be true, it should have depicted the same thing over longer periods of time. Suddenly you will realize, no, this is not what's happening over a longer period of time. There is something called reversion to the mean. That means if something is moving very fast, the pace of movement will moderate and come back to the mean level. If something is falling very drastically down, again the pace of fall will come down and it will revert to the mean. So you have to look at a longer periods of time and see what happened over longer periods of time. Find out the mean values. That will help you to conquer the recency bias. And if you see something which is diverting from that mean levels, the chances are that it will come back to the mean is absolutely real, and based on that you can take an appropriate decision. One another way you can conquer recency bias is by doing proper research. Your research should include everything, like how other stocks in the same sector are behaving, how the other asset classes are behaving, how has it panned out in the past 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, 20 years. You can ask people who are already there in the marketplace how this has panned out. Is there something which is abnormal that they are seeing right now? Will this trend likely to end? All these things can be researched well and you can arrive at a decision which is devoid of recency bias. Make sure you spend enough time to watch, read, ask, be guided, and thereby you will be able to conquer the recency bias. The fourth point to conquer the recency bias is you need to be having a coach. You need to be working under the professional financial advisors. When you work with professional financial advisors who have spent enough time in the marketplace, they know exactly how to conquer the recency bias and put you on the right track. In the last 2 years, I had a very difficult time convincing people. Markets were going very high. We were trying to put an exposure control on this. People who came were asking us, why are you doing this? When the markets are moving with such a momentum, why are you asking us to put controls on our exposure to the stock market? The reason why we were doing this was because the markets were moving at a terrific pace. This was not something which is very usual. Obviously, it has to end at some point of time. The reason why we were doing it is to prevent those losses might come in, or maybe when the markets will go and fall to a great extent, probably we'll reserve cash and we'll get a chance to rebuy into it. So use of a professional service by a seasoned advisor can also help you to conquer the recency bias. Dear viewers, I would like to hear from you. You could have been working in the marketplace for many months or many years. Do you have got any instances where you got affected by recency bias? Let me know through the comments what happened because of this recency bias and what did you do to conquer this. Dear viewers, if you are a person who want to create a very successful investment journey and if you are trying to look out for a professional help, our services are available to you. We have provided our contact number here on the screens. Through a WhatsApp message from any corner of the world, you can reach to us and one of the financial planner, either it's myself or one of my teammates from our NRI Money Clinic team, would help you to build a robust financial plan for you to succeed in life. Dear viewers, hope the episode that I have done today helped you to understand everything about the recency bias and why it is essential for you to conquer this recency bias to create success in your investment journey. If it helped you to understand all these points, please like this video. If you are a person who is watching this channel for the first time or if you are yet to subscribe for this channel, please make sure you hit the subscribe button and press the bell icon. Thank you very much for watching this episode on NRI Money Clinic. I shall be back with you with yet another very useful topic very soon.
Press the bell icon for more details and subscribe our channel.